Hello, and welcome to this Divine Partnership Coaching video. I'm not sure what I'm going to title this one, but the theme of it makes a lot of sense. It's what do you do when you are setting boundaries and the people around you are making you feel like a jerk for having boundaries? Which I want to say unfortunately, but actually quite fortunately has been, it's been part of my karmic lessons, I want to say, up until probably, I don't know, a couple of months ago. If you've been in a place of people-pleasing or codependent energy or fear, lack, like you've been afraid you couldn't do it alone, afraid of being single, afraid of being lonely, or afraid to rock the boat, afraid of what people will think of you, any of that, it's really hard energy to be in and have healthy boundaries. And when you start to, when you get yourself in a situation where you have to have boundaries, you must, otherwise you're going to be railroaded and run out for all of your money and completely drained for everything, which is what a lot of us have been through. I want to say more Divine Femmes probably in the energy of last year, and then more Divine Masculines now, especially with the masculine energy going on in the Lionsgate portal energy that's going on right now. But this is kind of a timeless video, so whatever stage you are in of the journey of learning about boundaries, this still applies. And one of the things that I've noticed is that oftentimes when we find that we need to set boundaries, yes, it is, we have allowed people to treat us in a certain way and have not spoken up about it. And oftentimes we will go through these toxic cycles of letting it happen, and then exploding and becoming a complete brat or a complete jerk. And then we feel bad, and then we don't want to uphold the boundaries that we set in that righteousness, or if we were not being righteous when we were angry, we don't want to keep boundaries that we set after we just basically punished somebody for that. So you go through that cycle, and then you get to a point to where you recognize that you need to set boundaries in a calmer energy with, while you're staying kind of professional. And it doesn't matter whether you're at work or you're in a relationship or you're talking about like co-parenting or family or anything. Like, you still need to be professional about it and be calm and set the boundaries very firmly and very clearly. And also be in mind there's a difference between boundaries and rules. Both can be necessary, but like a boundary would be, if you are disrespecting me, I'm not going to spend time around you. Like, that's a boundary. I am pulling my energy back for my own self-care and my own self-worth. I'm not asking you to do anything or not do anything. I'm simply letting you know this is what I'm going to do around anybody that is disrespecting me or my time or my resources, my feelings, thoughts, etc. A rule would be, if you don't pay rent by this time, then I'm going to end our lease agreement or our roommate agreement or whatever. Or if you don't take care of the tools or the dishes or whatever it is that you're using that are mine, then you cannot use them anymore. Like, that's a rule, because a rule is what you're asking, you're putting that on somebody else's behavior. And a boundary is kind of a rule you're putting on yourself, a commitment you make to yourself to either withdraw or be neutral in a certain situation. And oftentimes what happens is, when we need to have a boundary or a rule, it's because we have somebody around us who doesn't have healthy boundaries and is probably not very mature. They probably haven't hit the certain amount of life lessons to be able to understand or empathize the need for that. Or if they do, they have their own attachment traumas and things going on that prevent them from respecting those boundaries, even if they know that they're appropriate. Like, if you got anxious attachment, you might find it difficult to give somebody space in terms of communicating with them even though you know that space would be appropriate at certain times. And so like a boundary with somebody that has that, and you especially if you know they're working on it, could simply be that you decide you're not going to have so many conversations, like that's you. Or a rule could be like you let them know, look, I'm only available to talk between this time and that time. And and a boundary could even be something like, if you're unable to give me a reasonable amount of space when I am with friends or at work or with my kids or whatever, I'm going to turn off the phone, or I'm going to block you on Messenger, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Some sort of boundary to that. Or, you know, because rules apply in these situations, a rule could also be, if you're going to continue flirting with or fraternizing with other people whenever you feel neglected by me, I'm going to end this relationship, which is, it's like a boundary and a rule. And it's, to be quite frank, one that should be discussed early on in the relationship to make sure that you both understand each other's idea of exclusivity and what sort of dynamics you expect to have in a relationship. But like that applies either way. There are so many different things. It could be simply, hey, when I get home from work, I need at least an hour to decompress and unwind in my own clean, private space. I expect it to not be messed with when I get home. I expect that my space will be respected. If it's not, I'll lock the door and have my own space and time and not worry about what's going on. But if you continue to need something in that time and space, or you continue to make me feel uncomfortable in my own space after I have clearly expressed this to you in a kind and respectful way, then we're going to have to discuss a greater separation, because this is a simple thing to respect. And some folks are even wrapped up in situations where people are like outrightly disrespecting them, saying their ideas are stupid, or their dreams aren't worth pursuing, or that connections that they have aren't worth having, that they're not doing as good. Usually these come from people that already have pretty poor self-talk to themselves, but then it comes out, and like that's a pretty big form of disrespect. And a boundary in that would be, you know what, when you're like this, I'm going to walk away. When you are reactive, I'm going to walk away. When you're insulting me, I'm going to walk away. And if it continues, if you are not able to restrain yourself and change that, I want to say self-talk, but change that talk towards me, then we're going to end this dynamic, because it's not respectful, it's not healthy, and it's not okay. And I value myself enough to remove myself from situations where I feel disrespected. But the hard thing is, though, I mean, like, if you're setting boundaries and putting rules with somebody who's pretty secure and fairly healthy, like, say, your divine femme or your divine masculine, when they are in their divine energy, like, even if they feel like your boundary is a little strong, they will respect it. And they understand that sometimes we do need to have a stronger boundary at first, and then as that boundary is respected, that boundary will come down a little bit. So what could be a wall becomes more of a flexible boundary when that trust is built or rebuilt. Whereas somebody who's toxic, a lot of times you put up a boundary and they will intentionally stomp all over it, walk all over it, test it, push it. They might throw fits. They might say that you're being cruel or mean or unfair, or they might try to blame shift and say, well, but you did this thing and you did that thing, in which your response should simply be, if you would like a boundary there, I am happy to respect it. Just keep it, it's kind of gray rock-esque, If they're blame shifting and saying, well, you did A, B, C, and you say, you know what, right now what we are addressing is this boundary that I am placing. I would like to know that you are going to consciously respect it. However, I'm going to uphold it either way. And if you need boundaries respected from me, if I am breaking your boundaries, then you let me know very clearly what boundaries you're going to hold to yourself, and I will be respectful of those, and understanding that when I act in a certain way, you're going to remove your presence from me, or your, whatever it is. And the other things that might happen is when you might have somebody who decides, like, say in a relationship, that when you have a healthy boundary, like, hey, we have to save money. You can't go and spend it all over the place. You can't just have whatever you want. We need to save money. We have bills, we have kids, we have plans, whatever it is, and they will start to use unhealthy boundaries. Like, they might give you the silent treatment. They might withhold intimacy and sexual relations. They might start going out all the time. They might do things that are vindictive. Basically, it's tit for tat. It's like, and it's not a healthy space in there. And then you feel like you're almost punishing yourself by upholding your own boundary, because they're taking away things that typically are fairly rewarding experiences. Even the silent treatment, I mean, the simple act of removing your attention so much so as to not talk to somebody, that's actually called stonewalling. It's a crazy making tactic, as is the tit for tat thing, as is blame shifting and things like that. Now, here's the thing to remember: anybody who makes you feel like you are a cruel person or unfair or are being unreasonable when you lay a healthy boundary, which is you're putting a commitment on yourself to what you will do in order to remove yourself from situations where you're being disrespected, drained of your time, energy, money, etc. You're being insulted or abused in emotional, physical, whatever ways, or they're violating what you agreed on as, what would fit in with your dynamics with them, whether that's roommates or coworkers or romantic partners, whatever. Like, when they make you feel bad about that, keep in mind that it is exactly that is the reason that you need to have these boundaries with them. Typically, the only people who get upset and don't like it when you have boundaries are the people that have been abusing your boundaries the most. So hold on to it, and keep in mind too that it's good to give grace to yourself and to them. If you've had a hard time upholding boundaries, you've likely also been not very good at respecting other people's boundaries. And you've also likely been that person that has been upset when somebody else put a boundary up because you were not presenting healthy behavior and they had to pull their energy back in order to have some sanity and time. So recognize that if the person that you are working with is somebody that has the capacity to be on a healthier path, then they might throw a couple of fits. There might even be a couple of really big fits that make a whole bunch of big messes, but they will see it. They will understand, and they will come around. And it's not always going to be the first time. It might be the 10th time, but as long as you are firm in holding your boundary, you're not blaming them, you're taking personal responsibility, you're recognizing that you've allowed them to treat you that way and to be used to that sort of thing, and that you are making a change that they were not used to in the beginning, they'll come around. They will. And if the people that you're setting boundaries with don't have that capacity, then the problem is going to keep resurfacing and resurfacing. It might not be with the same boundary exactly, but it will keep coming up. And it's going to keep coming up until you are so fed up with it that you keep your commitment to yourself to pull away from that dynamic, whichever one that it is. And really, I think the best thing you can do is just have faith. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in spirit. Have faith in the people that you're working with, whether they're people that came into your life for a season or a day or for decades, whatever it is, that if they're meant to be on your path, they will stay on your path. And if they were only meant to be there for you to learn this lesson about setting boundaries, then the more that you hold firm in it, the sooner that they're going to get onto their path. And you're actually teaching them a valuable lesson that they will likely take with them. They might not apply it in the very next dynamic that they're in, but they will in ones after that. And you're helping them by doing that. You're helping them by setting those boundaries and saying nope, no more. And they're going to come across their own karmic cycles where they're faced with the same behaviors from other people, and they're going to think about what you did with them, and they're going to use that to get out of their own challenges in that way, and that ripples out and affects the world, because then the person that they dealt with is the same thing and the same thing, and that changes energies. So even if you end up in a big mess or a hurtful breakup, or you end up leaving a job or whatever it is, you still created something better for like the whole world, literally. And you're definitely creating something better for yourself, because no matter how much you feel genuine appreciation for somebody, you're never going to be able to have a fulfilling dynamic with them of any sort if you can't have healthy boundaries with each other. And, you know, sometimes that's the reason that we get entangled with people like that. Sometimes that's why toxic relationships come around, because we wouldn't have gotten to a place where we would have upheld boundaries if we'd been going through karmic cycles of codependence before, if we were not put up against somebody that we felt like we genuinely cared about them. Oftentimes people talk about like a false flame sort of thing in the twin flame journey, which is somebody that really presents and really, at least in the beginning, seems like they could be your divine feminine, your divine masculine, your soulmate, whatever. And but they just keep violating boundaries and things that you know that wouldn't have been an issue no matter how bad the issues were with when you were with your divine femme or divine masculine, or you know that when you find them, if you haven't met them yet, that it's not going to be like that. Like, even if you have a couple of rows in discussing boundaries, that they're going to come back. They're going to apologize. They're going to respect your boundaries. You're going to respect their boundaries. Things get better. Things get better in that. You can tell that you're in a karmic dynamic of some kind, whether work, relationship, or whatever else, because the issues keep coming up. They keep getting thrown right in your face, and they're going to until you deal with it, which is part of why I'm trying to do these video series, because I know going through it on my end, it was a lot of guesswork, and even trying to get help from so-called professionals didn't exactly help. And when it comes to dealing with attachment challenges and codependence and things of that nature, sometimes it's just helpful to be able to talk with somebody that's been through it. And so if anybody would like to reach out, I usually put my email in the comments below. It's madamthanatos@gmail.com. I'm happy to email, occasional phone call, just let me know. I can also do readings, and I provide coaching and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just helpful to have somebody that you can process out loud to, and who will be there and just say, look, you got this. You got this. It's good. It's calm. If the person you're with is somebody that you're meant to be with, rather than just dealing with karmic cycles with, they'll come around and they'll actually appreciate that you were firm in the boundaries that you set. And if they're not meant to be and it's a karmic cycle, then the best thing you can do is practice that healthy behavior. And by the time that things do actually, but by the time that you heal and that karmic cycle ends, you're going to feel much better about yourself than you are in this moment when somebody's making you feel like a jerk. Alright, well, I hope you got something out of this video. Please feel free to leave comments and questions in the comments below. I read all of them and do my best to make new videos based on what people are looking to learn. Thanks so much.